In 1905, a young colonial officer named Alfred Claude Hollis published a remarkable book through the Clarendon Press at Oxford. Its title was The Masai, Their Language and Folklore. This is the story of that book and of the people it tried to capture before they could vanish. It is a portrait of one of Africa's proudest and most feared pastoral nations, set down at the very moment European settlement was closing in around them on the great East African plains. Hollis wrote with a sense of urgency. His stated aim was to place on record the thoughts and ideas of the Maasai people before, as he put it, their extinction or their admixture with Bantu elements and contact with civilization rendered this impossible. So he gathered their stories, proverbs, riddles, songs, customs, and beliefs, all given, he insisted, in the words of the relators themselves. The result is both a grammar and a window, a careful study of a difficult language, and an intimate record of a proud military people standing at the edge of a world about to be remade. Before the Maasai themselves, we should meet the man who wrote them down and the moment that drove him to do it. Alfred Claude Hollis was Chief Secretary to the administration of the East Africa Protectorate, a man whose linguistic talents were, in Sir Charles Eliot's words, well known to everyone in East Africa. He had spent years studying and conversing daily with the Maasai. His book appeared in 1905 from the Clarendon Press, carrying a long introduction by Eliot, the Protectorate's commissioner. Eliot called it perhaps the most valuable contribution yet made to the anthropology and philology of Britain's East African possessions, the equal of Kropf and Sir Harry Johnston. Hollis held a single conviction that the Maasai language and mind, never properly recorded, were worth preserving in full. He wrote as both administrator and admirer, an outsider determined to let the people speak for themselves. His earlier work in anthropology and his daily conversation with the Maasai were, Eliot wrote, guarantee enough of the thoroughness and excellence of his book. The book's intimate detail owed an enormous debt to one man, Justin Olameni, a member of the Oikope or Lumbwa Maasai. Educated by the Church Missionary Society at Freretown near Mombasa and at Taveta, he had been baptized and trained as a teacher of the gospel, then lent to Hollis. His name, Olameni, means he who is despised, given because he was a small, sickly child not expected to live. To his diligence, Hollis owed much of his material. Remarkably, Hollis noted that some Maasai could now correspond with one another in their own tongue. He possessed several letters written in Maasai. Every story, proverb, riddle, and song in the book was set down, Hollis insisted, in the very words of the relators themselves. He paid the highest tribute to the Church Missionary Society, whose plan of training promising upcountry converts had given him this rare and gifted collaborator. Hollis closed his preface as what he called a well-wisher of the Maasai, one who had known them for a decade. Yet his hope was bound up in the assumptions of his age. The encroachments of civilization, he wrote, were beginning to be felt. The famous Rift Valley and the high plateaus where the fierce Maasai once reigned supreme were now being colonized by the white settler. He believed that only the gradual and peaceful civilization of the tribe, through the missions he praised so warmly, could save them from extinction. It has often been proved, he wrote, that the native, on the advent of the white man, either alters his habits or ceases to exist. The book is thus a salvage document, written at the edge of a vanishing world. Who were these people Hollis raced to record? Where did they come from, and how did they live upon the land? The Maasai occupied a vast stretch of the great East African plains, reaching from about 1 degree north of the equator to 6 degrees south of it, across both British and German territory. Those in British country called themselves Il Masai. The German Maasai were often known as El Oikope or Il Lumba, and the coast people lumped them together as Wamasai or Wakwavi. Curiously, though their land held many lakes, Naivasha, Nakuru, and others, they neither used boats nor caught fish, and they avoided both the sea and the great central lakes. Theirs was a world of open grassland, cattle, and sky. Eliot estimated their British numbers, by then much reduced, at somewhere between 12 and 25,000 souls, scattered across the plains of what is now Kenya and Tanzania. The smaller lakes in their haunts they ignored entirely, turning their backs on the water and their faces to the herds. Where had they come from? Sir Harry Johnston believed, probably correctly, that the Maasai represented an early mixture between the Nilotic Negro and the Hamite, the Gala Somali stock, a blend isolated long ago in the high mountains between the Nile and the Karamojo country. The clues pointed north. The Latuka, who live east of the Nile and are thought to descend from the ancestral Masai, speak a closely allied tongue and share many customs. The whole pattern of related non-Bantu languages, Masai, Nandi, Suk, Turkana, Karamojo, Latuka, Bari, and Dinka, runs in a broad belt from the Rift Valley toward the Nile. This distribution suggested a long, slow movement south and east out of the country between Lake Rudolph and the Great River. In East Africa, Eliot noted, the great invasions had generally run from north to south, and the Maasai seemed one more wave of that ancient drift. To European eyes, the Maasai and their Nilotic cousins looked strikingly distinct. Eliot described them as tall, thin men, with features not markedly Negroid and sometimes almost Caucasian. They were clearly set apart from the surrounding Bantu peoples in language, customs, and appearance, even though the Bantu often imitated them and carried a measure of Maasai blood. Several remarkable habits bound the whole Nilotic group together: the nudity of the men, the custom of resting while standing on one leg, the drinking of blood from living animals, and spitting as a sign of affection or blessing. Observers reached for many theories about the other factor in their makeup, gesturing toward Egypt and Abyssinia, but Eliot admitted that no honest statement could yet be made about what that factor truly was. By Hollis's day, the Maasai were split into two very different sections, speaking practically the same language. One, the Maasai proper, was entirely pastoral and nomadic, living by and for their cattle. The other, called El Oikope, or by the Swahili, Wakwali, had become agricultural and settled. The difference, Eliot judged, was not ancient. The farmers were most likely nomads who had given up the wandering life. Tradition did not carry the tribe's history back more than a century, so it would be rash to assume the herding life was the original one. The pastoral Maasai held the farmers in contempt. Lombwa, a term of scorn, meant a pastoral people who had stooped to digging the soil. Between these two ways of life lay the seed of a ruinous civil war. At the heart of Maasai life stood not a king or a state, but an entire generation of young fighting men. The social system of the pastoral Maasai divided the male sex into three stages: boys, warriors, and elders. Boyhood lasted until circumcision, which might be performed any time between 13 and 17, or among the poor, not until 20. All those circumcised about the same time belonged to the same age and were known together by a proud collective name, such as the White Swords or the Invincibles. This age set bound a man to his fellows for life. After circumcision, he became a warrior. After years of service, he married, settled, and joined the elders. It was a ladder every man climbed in step with his generation, and the warrior rung, fierce and disciplined, was the one on which the whole tribe's power rested. Among the pastoral Maasai, it was this generational rhythm, not any throne or dynasty, that gave the tribe its order. After circumcision, the warriors plaited their hair and, but for a small skin over the shoulders and their ornaments, went absolutely naked. They subsisted entirely on meat, milk, and blood, and were forbidden to smoke or touch intoxicants. They did not live with the married people, but in separate kraals together with the immature, unmarried girls, with whom they were allowed to cohabit freely. Tradition explained this practice as a guard against the girls being seduced by the enemy, but Eliot remarked grimly that the remedy had proved worse than the danger it was meant to avert. The physical toll was severe, and as contact with the wider world grew, so did disease. The warrior's existence was glory, discipline, and license braided tightly together. They wore long ochred plates and carried the great spears and oval shields that became, across East Africa, the very image of the Masai.
This warrior class made the Maasai a fearsome instrument of war and explains both their dominance in East Africa and how widely other tribes copied their customs. But it carried a political cost. The center of gravity, Eliot observed, lay not with the elders or the chiefs, but with a republic of young men, governed by the ideals of military comradeship and hungry only for military glory. That is why the Maasai, for all their power, never founded a state or kingdom like Uganda or Unyoro. A chief might plan the raids the warriors wished to make, but his power to compel them to do anything against their will was very slight. Retirement from the warrior band to become an elder was honorable, yet it felt like a removal to an inferior sphere.
About the age of 27 or 30, earlier once raiding was forbidden, a warrior married and settled down. A man of wealth and standing might be elected chief, made responsible for the warrior's discipline, though he no longer went to war himself. An elder's ideal of existence, Eliot wrote, seemed to be ease, not unmixed with drunkenness. The Maasai captured this in a proverb. "Don't lie with your feet against a post like the father of many sons," was their way of saying, "Don't give yourself airs." A vivid picture of the patriarch lounging on his back, feet propped against a post, while his family does all the work around him. The fierce young warrior had become the comfortable old man. Power and dignity passed quietly from the spear to the proverb, from the raid to the shade of the kraal. The women's world was sharply different from the men's. Unlike the warriors, women were carefully dressed in leather garments, yet a custom Europeans found striking forced them to shave their heads. Before marriage, girls were circumcised, then signaled their new status by wearing large circular earrings and necklaces of brass and iron wire. Both girls and women had their legs and arms encased in coils of iron so heavy, Eliot noted, that they could sometimes hardly walk. The stone earrings used to stretch the lobe might weigh nearly 3 pounds. While the men lived for cattle and war, the women carried firewood and water, built the huts, milked the herds, and bore the daily labor of the kraal, the unbroken backbone of pastoral life. It was the women, too, who erected the long, low huts, plastering them with mud against the rains of the plain.
If the Maasai had no king, they did have a prophet, a line of seers whose word could move the whole nation.
The nearest thing to a central authority among the Maasai was the medicine man, or Laiboni, more correctly, Ol Oiboni. They all belonged to the Kidongi family of the Iser clan, the clan that enjoyed a certain primacy and was bound to Mount Nong, south of Kikuyu, which they called the Mountain of the Iser. The Laibons were said to descend from a being named Ol Lemweya, who came down from heaven and was found by the Iser sitting on the summit of Mount Nong 9 generations ago, the genealogy carefully preserved. Yet the Laibon was no monarch. He commanded by prophecy and counsel, not by force, and never assumed the throne-like authority of the coastal sultans or the kings west of Lake Victoria. His authority was real but bounded, a spiritual weight laid upon a people who would bow to no crown. The Laibon's influence rested on his supposed powers of prophecy and divination, powers for which no explanation was offered and which did not depend on any named spirits. He foretold the future by throwing stones out of a horn, by inspecting the entrails of slaughtered animals, by interpreting dreams, and by delivering oracles while intoxicated on honey wine. Importantly, the Laibon was not the witch doctor of the Bantu tribes. It was no part of his work to hunt down witches, and the Maasai did not blame death or misfortune on witchcraft. The most celebrated of all these seers was Matian, who died about 1890. He was remembered for prophesying outbreaks of cattle plague and smallpox that duly came to pass, and for foretelling the very arrival of the white men.
Matian's death was followed by a disputed succession that reads almost like a page from Genesis. By the version Hollis recorded, Matian told his eldest son, Sindeo, that in the morning he would invest him with a Laibon's insignia, chief among them an iron club. But the younger son, Lanana, overheard and presented himself before his father at first light. Matian, very aged and with only one eye, behaved much like the blind Isaac and gave the younger son the insignia, saying, "Thou shalt be great among my brothers and among all the people." Lanana succeeded, accepted by all the Maasai except the Loita, who followed Sindeo. As the rift roughly matched the British and German border, Sindeo became chief of the German Maasai and Lanana of the British, until 1902, when Sindeo made his peace and came over to the British side.
Behind the warriors and prophets lay a quieter inner world, the Maasai vision of God, creation, and death. The commonest Maasai word for God was eng-ai, a noun that strikingly carried a feminine article. Eng-ai was used in two ways. Sometimes it meant, quite impersonally, the great natural powers, especially the rain, the sky, and the volcanoes. At other times, it meant a definite, personal, superhuman being who, in the words of a Maasai song, is prayed to and hears. The boundary between the two blurred constantly. The same prayers that rose to eng-ai also invoked the sun and moon, the morning and evening stars, and the mountain clouds. One song moves in two breaths from "He whom I pray to is God" to "He whom I pray to is Lanana, our medicine man." It is, Eliot mused, hard to say whether this was undeveloped religion or the faded remnant of an older worship of the heavens.
In its personal sense, the Maasai spoke of two gods, the black god and the red god. The black god was kindly, the red god was malevolent. It was the special pleasure of the black god to provide rain, while the red god objected to turning on the celestial water tap. Loud thunder, they said, was the red god trying to reach earth through the black god's domain in order to kill men. But the distant, gentle rumbling was the black god pleading, "Do let them alone, don't kill them." This happy conviction that the good power is near and the bad one far, Eliot thought, was no accident, but a clue to the Maasai mind itself. It spared them human sacrifice and the dark machinery of appeasing cruel powers altogether. Beyond the two gods stood Nilotic, a quasi-divine figure who was, if not the creator, at least the arranger of the present order of things. The principal patriarch of mankind was a man called Leo, though Dorobo hunters already walked the earth in his day, so he was not strictly the first man. By a tale common to many peoples, death entered the world through Leo's own selfishness and disobedience. Given a chance to make men rise again after dying, he spoke the saving words over the wrong child and lost the gift forever. And by an incident equally familiar, his younger son became the father of the Maasai, while his elder son forfeited his birthright and fathered the inferior tribes. In their myths, the Maasai placed the world's beginning in their own East African land. One belief lay at the very root of the Maasai economy and conscience, that God had given them, by an ancient arrangement, a right to all the cattle in the world. This conviction turned raiding from theft into the recovery of what was rightfully theirs, and helped make them the scourge of their neighbors. Their worship, though vague in ceremony, was unusually fervent. The Maasai prayed more often and more earnestly than the surrounding tribes. Thompson described them howling out prayers to eng-ai for hours together. By custom, the women prayed twice a day, the men only on grave occasions. Their petitions were simple and human, for children, for rain, and for victory, addressed to eng-ai as a real personality who is prayed to and hears, the god of their vast highlands and lowlands. From the marks they cut on their bodies to the way they treated their dead, Maasai custom was a world unto itself. The Maasai were known across East Africa by a set of unmistakable marks. The men went naked, the women shaved their heads. They knocked out the 2 middle teeth of the lower jaw, a practice shared with the Latuka, Bari, and Dinka along the Nile. They rested, like their Nilotic kin, by standing stork-like on one leg. Their ears were pierced and the lobes stretched with heavy stone rings, then hung with coils and ornaments of iron and brass. Their houses, too, were distinctive, long, low buildings of poles, grass, and mud, divided inside into separate rooms, unlike the round huts of their neighbors. These signs, repeated from the Rift Valley to the Nile, marked out a single ancient people scattered across 1,000 miles of plain. To meet such a man on the trail was to know at a glance that you had crossed into Maasai country. Cattle were the Maasai's wealth, food, currency, and reason for war. The pastoral sections lived almost entirely on the produce of their herds: meat, milk, and blood. The blood they drew from living oxen, shooting a blocked arrow into one of the swollen veins of the animal's neck, catching the flow in a gourd, then closing the wound so the beast lived to bleed again another day. Milk and blood, often mixed, were the daily staple of warriors who scorned both game and vegetables. To touch the soil with a hoe, to hunt wild animals for meat, to eat fish, all were beneath them. A man's herd was his standing, his bride price, and his bond with God, who had promised the Maasai the cattle of the whole earth. A man counted his worth not in coin or land, but in the living animals branded with his family's mark. Many Maasai customs inverted European expectations. To spit on someone was a sign of affection and benediction. Warriors spat as a blessing and sealed bargains the same way. Peace between groups was made with solemn ceremonies, including the rite of the red bead. Yet, for all their pride, the Maasai depended on despised outsiders for the very tools of their life. Because the men would do nothing but fight and herd, they relied on a special tribe of smiths, the Il-Kinono, to forge their spears and swords, craftsmen treated as inferiors and forbidden to marry Maasai women. A similar outsider people were the Dorobo, the hunters of the forest. The proud pastoralist who would not stoop to a trade still could not arm himself without the hands he scorned. It was a proud paradox lodged at the very center of Maasai life. Death among the Maasai was met with a starkness that shocked observers. Ordinary people, they believed, die like cattle, and their corpses were simply thrown out onto the plain to be eaten by hyenas with no ceremony at all. Only medicine men and people of great influence were buried. The souls of these honored dead were said to pass into snakes, which were respected and protected in consequence, a belief the Maasai shared with many tribes along the Nile. Tellingly, death and misfortune were not blamed on witchcraft, and the Laibon had no duty to root out witches. For a people so fierce in life, the Maasai met death with a brutal, unsentimental calm, burying their prophets,
abandoning their commoners and watching for the sacred snake. Only the great and the gifted, it seemed, were thought to carry anything beyond the body into the dark. Hollis's deepest gift to scholarship was the Maasai tongue itself, and a grammar no one had ever made clear before. For all the drama of warriors and prophets, the true core of Hollis's book was the Maasai language. It belonged to the Nilotic family, and its most striking feature was length. The words pile prefix upon affix into long, luxuriant formations. The phonetics, by contrast, were simple and easy, free of harsh gutturals, the utterance somewhat languid. The verb was richly developed, with forms for motion toward and away from the speaker, for action done in someone's interest, for the instrument or place of an action. Yet it had only moderate power over time, expressing present and past clearly, but the future only sporadically. Eliot judged that the researches of Hollis had for the first time made the grammatical system of Maasai coherent and clear, separating out the articles, relatives, and verbal prefixes that had long hidden the roots.
The vitality of Maasai, Eliot found, was concentrated in the article and the verb. The article marked both number and gender, but its gender was unlike anything in English. The masculine article, all, signified what is big and strong. The feminine, en, what is small or weak. Much like grammatical gender in German rather than a simple split between male and female. So beside true sexual pairs, like al-ashe, a male calf, and eng-ashe, a female calf, the Maasai set al-ioni, a boy, against eng-ioni, a small boy, and al-alem, the sword, against eng-alem, the knife. The same blade in its larger form was masculine, in its smaller form, feminine. To name a thing in Maasai was, in a quiet way, to judge its size and strength. Oddly, even a rhinoceros and a devil took the feminine form, a reminder that the rule bent to its own quiet logic.
There was an unexpected poetry buried in Maasai grammar. Lacking a rich stock of adjectives, the language built descriptions by joining the article to a genitive, turning a phrase into a noun. So the elephant was all lang-ai-na, the of the hand, the handed one, an image that echoes the Sanskrit word for elephant, hastin, from hasta, a hand. The lion was all lol-masi, the of the mane, the maned one. The brain was the of the head. By prefixing a relative particle, almost any verb could be turned into an attribute, so that the who sows meant the sower. A people often dismissed as mere fighters had woven invisibly into their everyday speech a habit of vivid, riddling metaphor, naming the elephant by its trunk-like hand and the lion by its crown. Through such constructions, a tongue poor in adjectives grew strangely rich in pictures, every named creature half a small poem.
By comparing vocabularies, Eliot mapped the Maasai language's kin. Its closest relative was Latuka, east of the Nile, then Bari, which seemed nearest to the common root, while Dinka had contracted its words into short, irregular forms. The numerals up to 5 matched across the whole group, betraying a shared ancient stock, even as Somali had clearly lent the Maasai their higher numbers. Into this careful philology dropped a startling claim. In 1904, just before Hollis's book appeared, the German scholar Merker published The Maasai, arguing that the Maasai belonged to the same stock as the ancient Hebrews, and citing traditions of a creation, a deluge, and 10 commandments that echoed the biblical and Babylonian stories. Eliot urged caution. Such tales might be borrowed from Christian or Muslim sources, but the puzzle of Maasai origins remained wide open.
For half a century, the Maasai had been the terror of East Africa. Then, within a single generation, their world fell apart. For at least 40 years, from around 1850 to the early 90s, the pastoral Maasai were a formidable power across East Africa.
They successfully asserted themselves against the Arab slave traders, took tribute from all who passed through their country, and treated every other race, African or European, with magnificent arrogance. Around 1859, they raided Vanga, near the present German frontier on the coast. When the explorer Joseph Thomson passed through in 1883, the journey behind his famous book Through Masai Land, the warriors entered his camp and ordered about his entire caravan, himself included, as though they were masters and the travelers their slaves. At their furthest reach, about 1830, they had pushed deep to the south before the Wagogo and Wahehe drove them back. To cross their plains was to pay or to fight.
The Maasai were undone partly by their own hand. The deepest wound was the long conflict between the pastoral and agricultural sections, ending in the victory of the herders and the annihilation of whole farming settlements, a catastrophe, because the survivors then depended entirely on cattle and raiding to live. On the Uasin Gishu Plateau, the Maasai turned on the Maasai of Naivasha, and after early success, were crushed by a coalition from Naivasha and Kilimanjaro, then finished off by the Nandi. The Uasin Gishu and Laikipia Plateau, once teeming, were emptied. Then nature struck. In the 80s, rinderpest devastated the herds, smallpox ravaged the people, and a severe famine completed the catalogue of misfortunes. A nation that lived by its cattle watched its cattle die. The surrounding tribes, long preyed upon, seized their moment of revenge, and the proud raiders found themselves, for once, the hunted.
By the time Hollis wrote, the Maasai of British East Africa numbered, on the latest estimate, perhaps 12,500, a remnant of a people who had once made empires tremble. Eliot's verdict was that of his era. The only hope for the Maasai, he wrote, was that under intelligent guidance they might gradually settle down and accept some measure of European civilization. Leaving their old military life untouched, he warned, was fraught with danger. We may flinch now at that confidence, but the book it framed remains. In their proverbs, the Maasai left their own verdict on the world. The zebra cannot change his stripes. We become wise by experience. There is no difference between the man who was called and he who came alone. Hollis's pages preserved a voice that history had nearly let fall silent.
A.C. Hollis set out to record a people he believed were vanishing, and in doing so left us something rarer than a colonial report, the Maasai speaking, as far as the page allows, in their own voice. Their warriors and prophets, their two quarreling gods, their covenant of cattle, and their riddling, mountain-built language all survive between his covers. The world he feared would erase them never fully did. The Maasai endure today, proud and unmistakable on the same Great Plains. But this 1905 book remains a window onto that earlier moment, and a reminder of how much of a people's soul lives inside their words. Thank you for watching. If this journey through the Maasai moved you, please share, subscribe, and like, and join us again on Africa Good Life.